Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the oldest, biggest questions in human history. We're going to be guided by an account of what might be the single greatest experiment ever conducted by the ultimate investigator.
I mean, it's the question, right? It's something that has kept thinkers and philosophers up at night for thousands of years. But what if one person, just one, was uniquely equipped to run a definitive, exhaustive experiment to find the answer once and for all?
Well, according to this account, that person existed. His name was King Solomon, and his credentials for this investigation, well, they were unlike anyone else's in history. I mean, just look at this resume. It is absolutely staggering. We're talking about unmatched wisdom, limitless riches, wealth beyond what we can even comprehend today, absolute power as a king, with every resource at his command. And on top of all that, he was the leading philosopher, botanist, and zoologist of his time. The whole idea here is that if anyone could find the meaning of life through sheer human effort, it was him.
So, to start this whole experiment, Solomon set a really crucial boundary for himself. He decided he would only look for answers under the sun. Now, what does that mean? It means he was going to look from a purely secular, human perspective, without bringing a divine dimension into it.
And you have to understand, he was all in. This wasn't some casual thought experiment. He describes it as this intense, deep, all-encompassing investigation into every single aspect of human life.
So, after his exhaustive investigation, his first big conclusion is jarring. He says everything under the sun is vanity. But the original Hebrew word here, hivel, is absolutely key. It doesn't mean conceited. It means vapor, a puff of smoke, a soap bubble. It's something you can see, but it has no substance, and it vanishes the moment you try to grab it.
And this just illustrates his finding perfectly. He concluded that trying to find ultimate, lasting meaning in the things of this world was as futile and as frustrating as trying to literally catch the wind in your hands.
So how did he even get to such a bleak conclusion? What paths did he actually explore? Well, he systematically tested every possible avenue for human fulfillment, and he pushed each one to its absolute extreme. He started with the two poles of experience. First, he dove headfirst into wisdom, becoming the most knowledgeable person on Earth. But when that failed to provide ultimate meaning, he swung the pendulum completely to the other side and just immersed himself in foolishness and pleasure-seeking. But he didn't stop there. He exhausted every other avenue you can possibly imagine. Physical pleasure through lavish parties, grand architectural achievements, accumulating an insane amount of wealth, exploring relationships on a massive scale, and achieving global fame. And no matter which path he took, whether he was at the height of intellectualism or in the depths of hedonism, the end result was always the same: profound frustration. This led him to a really stark diagnosis of the human condition, at least when viewed from this limited perspective. So, Solomon concluded that from a purely human viewpoint, life is plagued by two fundamental, unfixable problems. The first part of his diagnosis is this. He observed that some things in the world, and even in human nature, are just fundamentally broken, crooked. And our human systems, he found, are ultimately powerless to permanently fix them. And the source material points out some great examples. Despite our best efforts with politics, we can't completely stamp out corruption. Education gives us information, sure, but it doesn't solve the problem of evil. Smart people can still do terrible things. And philosophy? It provides endless theories, but no final, ultimate answers. And this is the second part of the diagnosis. He concluded there's a fundamental void, a missing piece in the human equation that we can't fill on our own. It's like trying to complete a puzzle when you know a piece is missing, but you don't even know what it looks like. The math of life just doesn't add up. Okay, so after reaching this complete and total dead end, the entire book just pivots. It reveals that the problem wasn't the search for meaning itself, but the limitations Solomon had placed on it from the very beginning. Remember that under the sun role? Solomon's entire experiment was confined to that perspective. He was, in effect, looking for a transcendent, infinite answer inside a closed, finite system. It was never going to work. So what happens when you change the rules? What happens when you change your perspective? Well, the argument is that the entire conclusion flips on its head the moment you stop looking for meaning from the world and instead look to the one who created it. And this just illustrates that change perfectly. shifting from that purely horizontal, under-the-sun view to a vertical, above-the-sun view changes everything. From this new perspective, what was crooked could be made straight, and what was lacking could finally be supplied.
And this is where Solomon's journey finally ends. The meaning of life, he concludes, isn't found in what we can grasp, achieve, or understand under the sun, but in our relationship to what is above it.
And this leaves us with a final, provocative thought to chew on. According to this ancient experiment, perhaps the answer to life's biggest question isn't something we find through all our human striving, but something we finally receive when we're willing to look up.